Hey guys, welcome to the Weekly Poll. This is a every other week podcast that we've been doing for almost 5 years now, in which we talk about pop culture in general. We pretty much talk about movies, comic books, video games, whatever is typically going on. And today we're going to be talking about Stan Lee and his life and his achievements and what he's meant to us and that kind of a thing. Being that Stan Lee pretty much created what Marvel is today, he's kind of important to everyone on this podcast. Today's hosts are our usual full amount of people here, but we have Rob from Comics Explained, Sal and Tiffany both from Comic Pop, Tiffany more from the Twitch channel, twitch.tv/ComicPopTV, Sal from the YouTube channel, and Joel from Caped Joel. And you may or may not know me, but I'm Benny. I'm known as the Comicstorian, and I also do a lot of things on this Twitch channel here at Eligible Monster. We're not going to do this as like a super sad podcast. We're gonna talk about the joys of Stan Lee. We are gonna do a couple things a little not normal. Probably not too many lewd jokes or humors. If we get a subscription, we are going to think them as normal. Rob can store up all of his usual splooging until next episode, just explode. But that's what we're gonna handle today. So, and I also am gonna just clearly state it up front right now for the Twitch chat. We have seen everything that's been going on, all of the people being problematic. We're not here to discuss any of the problems of Stan Lee's life. We're here to discuss what we enjoyed and what we liked about Stan Lee, and that's all we're here to discuss. So you can ask your questions, but we're not going to be paying attention to those.
Yeah. So just kind words, guys.
That's actually a good one. I like DC Guy. How about whenever someone subs or resubs in honor of Stan Lee today, we say Excelsior.
I love it.
That is a genius idea.
Yeah. Okay.
That's
a good one.
Genius.
Okay, well then, Excelsior.
We all caught up.
And also, because we did this on our show yesterday when the news broke, everyone, let's all give ourselves an Excelsior, and everyone in chat to celebrate Stan Lee, let's all say Excelsior. Give us an Excelsior. You can do that sub, not sub. We can just all say it. All right?
Okay.
So, 3, 2, 1, Excelsior!
That was nice.
Yeah, actually, kind of a fun fact. There was an interview that Stan Lee did where that was just a random word he put in. Like he said it just to say it, and I guess it stuck, so they kept it there forevermore.
Yeah. Then he looked it up and he's like, "Oh, it means onward and upward. I like that."
We'll keep that going.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Yeah. So I guess we can jump around the room a little bit, talk about Stan and what he means to us. How many people here remember the first time they were exposed to Stan Lee as as an icon?
Ooh.
Oh yeah.
That's a good question.
I mean, for me, it was curiosity because I remember looking at the cover of comic books and it was like Stan Lee presents this and Stan Lee presents that.
Yeah.
And
I think that's how it was for me. I think it was just he was always there. He's like omnipresent to the whole thing.
Yeah.
And Excelsior, Doggy, Triple X.
Hey.
It's true. I can't imagine comics without him, or a time when I didn't know who Stan Lee was.
That's what
he was
I mean.
always there.
I've been in comics since I was little. My dad got me into them when I was younger, and I think at all times, for me, I've always kind of known he's there. You know, like he's just always been there. He's the creator of Spider-Man.
No, it's true. I remember reading. I think like you said, it was like Stan Lee presents this thing, and you're like, who the hell is Stan Lee? If you didn't know back then.
That was it, man.
It's hard to not, because none of us were around when Marvel was kind of like coming into its own, when Stan became an icon, when it started to become a mover and shaker at Marvel. So in our experience, Stan had already been a fixture of Marvel Comics, the father of Marvel Comics as it's known as today. And so as a result, when you think about how we were exposed to Stan, for me it was like seeing his name, seeing his soapboxes, and hearing his voice doing narration for cartoon shows.
Oh, yes.
Oh, God.
So, we got the whole package pretty much all at once, and he was more than happy to provide, because he's just like, okay, I'm everywhere. I'm on the cartoons. I'm in the movies. He did a cameo during the Trial of the Incredible Hulk, where Daredevil showed up in that Bill Bixby, Lou Ferrigno series. He was physically, visually in, all the movies when they started, with the notable exception. I don't think he's in the Spider-Man 70s movies, which is all the better.
I actually never saw those.
I've
not the original or the Japanese ones. I don't think he was in those either.
No, I don't think he's in the Japanese ones either. but yeah, man, don't see those movies. Although I will say, here's a funny story about Stan Lee regarding the movies and stuff. I remember there was did anybody remember the story about how Michael Jackson wanted to buy the rights to make the Spider-Man movie?
Yes.
No, what's that story? 'Cause
Okay,
I was
Michael
going to say, let's
Jackson
talk
wanted,
about
by the
some of
way,
his lesser known.
Michael Jackson not only wanted to make the Spider-Man movie, he wanted to play Spider-Man.
Naturally.
And
Michael
Stan Lee
Jackson.
was like, I'll allow it, but I get to play J. Jonah Jameson. And I'm like, man, what a missed opportunity, especially in the 70s Spider-Man show, but because like back then he looked like J. Jonah Jameson, but like
Right.
but just with dark sunglasses. But man, it would be so great to have seen him actually portray Stanley or J. Jonah Jameson at some point.
Yeah.
Because apparently he
would've
was
been-
like modeled after him a little bit. Like J. Jonah Jameson
I
was
could
like
see that, yeah.
J. Jonah
Well, see,
Jameson
that-
was Stan Lee's like self-effacing critique of what he imagined everyone at the bullpen thought of him.
Yeah. No, that's actually really, really true. There was this interview, well, not really an interview, but like Jim Shooter, one of the editor-in-chiefs that came later on down the line. Jim Shooter had, and I don't know if he still uses it, but he had this long-running blog for a while.
Yeah.
And he would
yeah.
just tell stories from like inside Marvel Comics.
Yeah.
Great reading.
And he mentioned that when he first became editor-in-chief, that like people hated him. And he was one of the most reviled editors-in-chief. Yeah, like people hated him. And he said like there was one point where he was at a bar or on a plane or something like that, but he was talking to Stan Lee.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, I don't really know what, I don't know what to do here. And Stan Lee's like, look, man, if they hate you, that means you're doing your job.
Right.
Because like your job is to make sure that like the comics get published on time, that the scripts are turned in on time, the art's turned in on time, like literally like hold their feet to the fire. That's just the way this works.
Yeah.
But I could definitely see J. Jonah Jameson modeled after Stan Lee. Especially because like if you go and look at like the old comics from back in the 60s, it was common not like it was a common theme to have writers and artists put themselves in their own comic
Oh,
books.
totally.
Oh yeah.
I mean, not all the time, but relatively consistently.
I mean, Stan and Jack are both in the books. Like they
Yeah.
Numerous
hear,
times.
they make references to each other. I think they have like a couple of move the car George moments where they're just like, "This is me," like where Stan and Jack like have a back and forth, and Jack's like, "I'll draw it, but I don't like this."
Yeah.
Excelsior, John Apocalypse.
As
John Apocalypse. God, he's been around for a long time.
yeah,
I like saying Excelsior. This is
right.
nice.
It's not bad. It really rolls off
It's
the tongue.
wholesome.
Excelsior.
It feels less like Rob's, being very inappropriate with the fan base.
Hey, the fan base loves it. All right. I'm sorry the fans love it.
You got to give the people what they want.
You gotta give them what they want, man. Like, if they're begging for it, who am I to say no?
Yeah.
Who am I to decline?
Um,
Okay. So this goes for you guys.
I wanted to bring up something real quick though. Just what is your current? Because I thought this would be good before we get into that. What is your favorite cameo or portrayal of Stan Lee? Because someone tweeted this at me and it reminded me of what I felt. This happened recently, but his cameo in the Spider-Man game.
Oh,
In
really
which he
good
sits
one.
with Spider-Man and he sits with Mary Jane and he makes a comment along the lines of, "You two were always my favorite."
Yeah.
And it's like that felt like such a genuine cameo as opposed to the janitor or opposed to the whole, I've got to pop in and say hi.
Yeah.
Just felt like legit, like the way it was worded, the way it's portrayed. For me, that was probably his best cameo, even though it's recent. Just the way it was. But what is your guys' favorite cameos that he has done in general?
That is a tough.
Damn, that is a good question.
There's so many good ones, and there's ones I've forgotten that were good.
Yeah.
I would say the most entertaining one is the one where he's sitting talking to the Watchers.
Yeah.
And
That's
like,
the one.
and
Yeah.
it's
Yep.
like, to me, it's entertaining because it's like just like old man stories, and it's like he just keeps going on and on and on, and eventually they're just kind of like, all right, we gotta go. Like, it's been cool, pops, but like we gotta go.
Yeah. And then there was the time I was the Federal Express man. Like, I like
yeah.
that.
He
That's
loved
like
that
those
one,
are the
apparently.
stories. Like, from his perspective, those stories are really boring. Like, so then I went to Tony Stark's place and I called him Tony Stank, and then I left. Like, that's riveting. You got anything else? Yeah. I was gonna be in the collector's collection, but then they cut me out.
What was which movie was it? Was it Amazing Spider-Man 2 where he's a librarian and like the whole place is just getting torn up behind him and he's just
That
like
was the
listening to
first
music?
one. That
And...
was Amazing Spider-Man 1 with the lizard.
Okay.
Yeah, I think in
Okay.
2 he sees him getting changed, or he is like part of his street. He's on the street with him basically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't even remember. I do remember him in Homecoming where he's like, "Hey Marjorie, how's it going?"
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah.
I
No.
liked him with
that
Lou
was-
Ferrigno in The Incredible Hulk.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yes.
that was a good one. Gotta beef up
Hold
security.
on. What now?
That's
And
the
the
one
Incredible Hulk.
in Hulk
He's with
by
Lou
Ang
Ferrigno.
Lee.
Yeah,
both
but like
security
which?
guards.
Oh, that's right. Well, because I remember there's the no, wait a minute, the Lou Ferrigno cameo with the Incredible Hulk. That's the one where he sneaks in. You're talking about the one with Edward Norton, right? Because that's one where he sneaks
yeah.
in.
We're talking about the Bana one.
Yeah, the Eric Bana.
Oh, was
The
it in
Eric
that
Bana
one?
one, okay.
They're both not the greatest movies ever, but
No.
Oh no, that's right. They're walking out of the building.
Yeah.
That's what it is. They're walking out of the building and talking. I was gonna say because the one with the cameo in the Lou Ferrigno cameo in the Edward Norton one is one where he brings in pizza.
Yeah.
yes.
And then he just tells him to go ahead.
That's right.
Yeah, no, the Ang Lee Hulk was terrible. That movie was awful.
Didn't he also drank the soda that like Bruce Banner's blood gets into as well.
Drank
Yes.
the Gamma juice.
Yeah, he's like,
Yeah, that
wow.
was a Stan Lee cameo.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was the old man who drank the stuff and then like collapsed.
Excelsior ordered Saturn.
Has
Another one, it might not be the best movie, but I actually kind of like this one because it was Stanley actually getting to interact with the character on screen instead of just doing a walk-on. Spider-Man 3, again, not a great movie, but it was fun to actually see Stanley talk to Peter Parker for a minute.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that the one
I
where
like it
standing on
better
the
whenever he interacts with the characters themselves.
Right.
Yeah.
There's yeah, Spider-Man 3
What was
sucks,
the one?
but
What was the Captain America ones?
that was the one where he's a general and he's like, I thought he'd be taller.
Yeah, it's like it's fine. It's not great.
It's cute, but it's not great.
Yeah.
There's one, I'm trying to think of the one that reminded me of the Spider-Man 3 one. Oh, it's the no. Yeah, I'll get there. Where he's interacting with a character. I'm trying to remember what it was.
I do like the one of him in. I'm just gonna cut you off here. In Winter Soldier, where he's the security guard.
I am so fired.
What about Age of Ultron, where he's actually hanging out with a bunch of other World War II vets, which he actually was in real life? So I thought that was a nice bring.
Yeah, that was cool. Yeah, he he drinks the alcohol that Thor brought.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he's like, no, I can handle it, and like they have to carry him out. He's like, Excelsior. That's what he hammered.
Yeah. That's a great
that was pretty amazing.
He was such a good sport about everything.
Yeah.
He really was.
He's such an incredible individual. Like you never heard a story where he was mean or nasty or didn't want to be there. And you could tell each one of those cameos is just for fun.
Yeah.
If you looked into it, Tom Taylor apparently tweeted out that he had met up with them at one of their big summits, and he met up with Stan Lee. And Tom Taylor, he asked something to Stan Lee, and Stan Lee said, "Yes, you could." Basically. He asked about something with the X-Men, and Stanley's response was, "Can I have a cameo in it?" And so Tom Taylor told him, "Okay," and then Stanley said, "Okay, I expect a check for my cameo in your book."
I'm so surprised. I mean, like I know you were thinking very much of MCU, but I'm surprised that you didn't mention Mallrats.
Yeah, I was getting the Mallrats.
Hold on,
or Deadpool even.
Hold on, when was Stan Lee in Mallrats?
Stanley literally plays Stan Lee. He's like a plot device in like towards the end of the movie, where he inspires the Jason Lee character to like go chase after the woman of his dreams, and then it turns out he was paid off by Brody's friend. But it's great. It's the idea is that Stan Lee is at this like mall. He's going to sign comic books. Then they rope him into it. It's one of his first like official big movie cameos where he gets to like say lines and stuff. There's a great sequence where Stan and Brody are on like a mall bridge and they're talking. And if you ever watch the Mallrats commentary, Kevin Smith will tell you the story. But like, there's moments where he's talking to Brody about like having a girlfriend. By the way, all the stories that Stanley tells about like where the characters come from, about the girl who got away, all made up. None of it's real. If you ever like think like, oh man, I know something about Stanley because I watched that Mallrats cameo. It's all made up. It's all horseshit. Don't buy it. But because he's been happily married, he was happily married to Joan for a long, long time, and that was the only girl, and he did get her, and that's that. But like,
She cut his
there's a
hair.
great moment where he's talking to Brody, and he's got these big Rex Harrison sunglasses on, and he's like talking to Brody, and every once in a while he's like just kind of glancing around the mall, like taking it in, but it's actually Stanley reading the cue cards for his lines, and just sneaking glances to get the lines so that he can deliver them, and he's doing it like a freaking pro. Like you'll never notice. But if you ever see like him just kind of glancing out the side of his glasses, like that's him reading cue cards for the lines for that scene. Just great. For me, if you ever want to see like Stan in like a really pure, fun Marvel experience that's behind the scenes, go out to your local garage sale or toy convention and grab yourself a VHS tape of Night of the Sentinels from your Pizza Hut issued tape of the X-Men animated series, because before that video, which by the way, X-Men animated series, it was a 2-part promo to tell you that there was going to be a show in like a year, but like they released the tape if you bought a personal pan pizza from Pizza Hut. And I think the whole clip is on YouTube, by the way, but all the tapes that were issued from Pizza Hut for the X-Men animated series were bumpered by a sequence between like Bob Harris, I think, and Stan Lee and Scott Lobdell, and they're all just talking about X-Men, and Stan is just owning the room, and he's these amazing stories, and there's an incredible moment where he talks about Cyclops' powers. I don't want to spoil it, so just go find it and watch it, because it's great, because Stan, like, his signature dark glasses are always on, and it's just and he uses that to incorporate his anecdote about Cyclops. Watch that sequence. You will laugh and then cry because of what's happening. So definitely check it out.
That sounds pretty sweet.
It's great. It's just fun.
Okay. So here's my question.
Yeah.
When was the first time you guys met Stan Lee?
I never did.
Same.
I mean,
it was an experience. Like getting something autographed by Stan Lee was an experience. That's the best way to put it.
I remember when you did that, because you were like, "Oh, Betty, you should get it too." And that was during the period where I wasn't having much fun at cons. I was just simply there to see how much business we can negotiate and things like that.
Yep.
And so you went up to do the Stan Lee thing. It was actually funny because you put out your video, and I was debating if I should say something. And I'm like, honestly, if I make a video about Stan Lee, I have no personal experiences. I don't know the man. I didn't go get anything signed. There's no story to tell. I felt it would have been in poor taste for me to just make a video to be like, Stan Lee passed away. So I was like, I had no personal experiences to say about going to, and yours was hilarious if you want to retell it here on the show. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Sal, you must have something, didn't you?
I met him twice. So I'm like very privileged and so incredibly lucky. The first time I think was at New York Comic Con, where he just had a table. The line I think had like maybe 10 people in it, and I just jumped into the line.
Me.
This is going back maybe 2009.
Wow.
But I jump in the line, and I have a copy of a book because I brought it. I knew he was going to be there, and so I'm like, just in case. Yeah, I think it was my Spider-Man Big Time, the first appearance, the first issue of Spider-Man Big Time, and I bought a copy of it because I knew he was going to be there, so I didn't bring anything. I did not know I was going to get a signature from him. So I jump in the line. Before I know it, I'm there, and I think Tiffany, you were in the line with me, right?
I think I was.
Because I think you got to say something to him. And as I recall, I believe you did get to say, like, hey, thanks for the comic. Like, you were like, Sal paid. I don't want to steal from him by, like, saying something. But, yeah, we went up to him. I was like, hey. And by the way, that was before, like, the security got beefed up and everything got crazy. So, like, it's just him just standing there in, like, a really, really low table. So I'm, like, towering over him. I'm like, I'm trying to like crouch down. I'm like, here you go. I'm like, listen, man, thank you so much for Spider-Man. And he's like, well, you bet, buddy, or something like that. I think that's what he said. And he signed it. He did the little sign, and he went like chucked it back at me as like the slid across the little table. And before I knew it, like, I was gone. And it was just that was a great experience. And then Tiffany bought me for my birthday a like meet and greet with Stan Lee at Big Apple Con. And so what that entailed was you got like a VIP ticket. Big Apple Con was falling apart and dying at that point. And so that show was like on the pier in New York, and like the whole thing was a mess. But like it was kind of like fun because the whole like it was like the apocalypse where like anything goes, lawlessness ruled the landscape. Like there are celebrities just kind of like wandering about, and you could just abscond with them for your own. But so they set it up where they're basically like, okay, well the meet and greet with Stan Lee, like there's almost no way to make it exclusive because the whole damn place is one big area. So they said like, okay, if you go upstairs, that upstairs part is what is dedicated for the Stan Lee experience. No one may go upstairs unless you have a ticket. So I got my ticket, I go upstairs, and so I'm hanging out with like maybe 8 or 9 people, and they set up a thing where like the dude who used to be his like promo guy, who he's like an actor. I don't remember where he's from, but like anyway, he emceed the event. He's like, okay, everybody, here's the deal. Stan can't hear you. So don't be surprised if we ask you to speak louder. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take your question that you have for him, because like the idea was it was kind of like a little like informal Q&A session. So it was like 8 or 9 of us in a little auditorium, and then he was going to go up. And he's like, "You're going to ask your question. I'm going to repeat your question, maybe a little shorter than the way you asked it, so that he can hear it properly." But he was like, but when he comes out there, he like ran out and like did a little like jump onto the stage, and I'm like, "Oh, be careful, you're a fragile man." But he was ready to go, and the only thing that was kind of like not working right was just like his hearing was a little bad. And so everybody asked some questions. Tiffany was like, "Make sure you have a good question." I had no question. Because like I'm a nerd, I look up this stuff. I'm like, I kind of know all the stories. Was it fun making Spider-Man? I had nothing. I just wanted to kind of be there for the experience. So I just kind of like watched everybody like asking questions, and then they were like, "Okay, well go say hi." So like you walk up and there he is, and I'm like, "Hey, Stan, thanks for making comics and making everything matter. It's really, it's." And he's like, I don't remember what the crime is I don't remember what he said. It was something very encouraging and something very sweet, but it's something like that if you were at Thanksgiving and you turned to your like kindly uncle and said like, "Hey, Uncle like Steve, thanks so much for like taking care of me and like bringing me to the zoo that one time." Whatever sweet, encouraging, amazing thing he said to you to make you feel like good inside, like that's what he said. So whatever it was, but it was really nice. And he like we got a little picture which I didn't post online because it's like why. And that was it. And it was just like, and then we like milled around for a little while, and it was just a really, really cool, authentic, and one of a kind experience. Not just because it was Stan, but because like they don't run those events like that anymore. They're very careful about it. But it was very fun, and you could tell like he liked it. He was like he wasn't tired or like unhappy about it. Everybody that he met was like he was like emboldened to say something like really encouraging and sweet, and he was always like at no point was he like, "Oh, another one." He was just like, "Okay, next one." Like what this is it? Like come on, more? Like it's just he was really, really excited and happy, and like just a true ambassador to everything that he represented.
Okay, I think what he said to you, and I could be wrong, but I think the gist of it was that he thanked you for reading and then acted as though he wrote it for you.
Yes, that's right.
Wow.
Thank you. That sounds like how I described it to you.
Yep.
Yeah.
No, I didn't experience that at all. Like my whole experience was a lot more regimented. It was a lot more structured. You know what it reminded me of? It reminded me of that scene from 30 Rock when Tracy Morgan's character gets in there and he's like the high profile celebrity. And there's somebody who says something to him, and he was like, "I don't like the way they're looking at me." And then like Alec Baldwin turns around to everyone. He was like, "Do not touch Mr. Jordan. Do not look him in the eye." And that's kind of how it felt, because like it was okay. So sitting in line with all these people, sitting there like waiting for Stanley, like I was amped. Like I've never been that excited to meet someone before. Like meeting Hickman, meeting Jason Aaron, meeting Scott Snyder, meeting Chris Claremont. Like I was more excited about meeting Stanley than I was meeting all those guys. And so I'm standing in line, and they bring Stan Lee out, and it's like, okay, like this is really, really awesome. At that point, you could tell that like his age was becoming a thing, because he was struggling to walk on his own, and so he basically had people who were like helping him to the stage. Crowd went nuts. So the top came off that place as soon as Stan Lee came out, and so they bring him over there, and they have like these 3 long tables, like long form tables, like those big conference tables. And they have one guy sitting at one table. You have Stan Lee in the middle, and then you have this hoss of a man. That's his bodyguard. You know what I'm talking about? Like the great big bodyguard guy.
Oh yeah.
That's always with him all the time.
Yep.
And so it's kind of crazy, because it's like they come out, they're like, "Okay, guys," and they basically say like Stan Lee's here, and here's how this is going to work. And it's like the most structured and regimented thing ever. It's like, you will hand your comic to this man. This man will inspect it. He will hand the comic to Stan Lee. You will have a moment to say a few words. Do not take any pictures. If we see you take your pictures and take your phones out, we will kick you out, and you will have to wait until tomorrow. And it's just like, Jesus, man, like, wow, like it's like you're interviewing a president or something like that. And so I get up there, and sure enough, I hand my comic to the guy, and the guy inspects it and everything, and he's like, and then he hands it off to Stan Lee, and then Stan Lee just autographs it, and he's like, "Man, I'm a great big huge fan. I absolutely love this, love the work that you've done," and all these different things. Like as I'm talking, Stan Lee's autographing. The bodyguard guy has his finger on the edge of the comic. As soon as Stan Lee is done, it's like, bam, thank you. And it's like, he's like, "Here you go," and just hands it to me, and then like, and it's like, "And you got to go." And it's just like it's like that. It happened so fast, and it was like, yeah. So that's that. So I got an autograph with Stan Lee, and it was. I mean, honestly, will be 100% honest. You kind of felt like walked away feeling a little bit cheated, because it's like this is like Stan Lee though, and I'm given like at any point in time I'm given like 15 to 20 seconds. So like say, hey, what's up? I love the work you do, and then you're out. And so it was, but at the same time though, like he was the main star of that con because it was Louisville Fan Fest, I think is what it is, and they were trying to get like a huge amount of people in there. And so it kind of made sense that he's a great big huge attraction. The line was pretty bonkers, and so it like when you're his age, like when you're probably easily exhausted, and so it kind of made sense that they were like, okay, like we're just gonna regiment this thing and get people like in and out, as fast as we can, so that way we don't have Stan Lee sitting here for 16 hours, autographing stuff.
No,
but yeah, no, like that's one of the coolest things. I mean, the saddest thing about it was I have a copy of Fantastic Four Annual #2. Which is the original origin of Doctor Doom. And I wanted Stan Lee to autograph it. And I just wanted to have it for the sake of having it. And I forgot about it. And so I ended up having to like buy a copy of Superior Iron Man #1. And I was like, it's not the same. but still, I mean, I have a Stan Lee autograph. And so now like I have that for posterity's sake. And I'll keep that forevermore. But yeah, no, it was cool. Like it was cool getting something autographed by the man himself. It was pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Pretty cool experience. But yeah, no, I mean that's kind of the crazy thing. Like, I mean, like you look at the life and times of Stan Lee, and you're just like, Jesus, man, like this guy. Like, I imagine everything you would see living to your 90s, like living to almost 100 years old. Like, imagine everything you see. Like this guy, So like 1939, he gets an assistant job at Marvel. And so it's like, all right, so from 1939, basically a year after Superman's introduced, well, it was timely at the time, but like a year after Superman's introduced. And so Stan Lee basically saw like the rise and fall and return and fall and the return again of the whole comic book industry. Like the guy was a part of it from virtually beginning to end, the entire, well, not really end, but like to its current form, the entirety of the comic book industry. And like, to me, that's astounding. Like, imagine all the things that you would see. I mean, like he pushed for people to get rid of the Comics Code Authority. I mean, like the guy had like a huge hand in the whole of the comic book landscape. And that's one of the funny things. One of the things a lot of people don't know is a lot of people look at Stan Lee and they're like, yeah, so like he made Spider-Man and like Thor and stuff.
I have a list here of the things that you wouldn't even know he worked on. Like, I mean, like he did. Where did it go? I did have a list here of everything. But he worked on DC Comics. He made a Superman comic in 2004. He wrote in Detective Comics number 600, 1989. He did a text piece. He did his own reimaginings of all the heroes: Batman, Aquaman, Catwoman, Crisis, Flash, Green Lantern, JLA, Robin, Sandman, Secret Files, Shazam, Superman, and Wonder Woman. He also wrote a Silver Surfer book for Simon and Schuster. He's also done things like Hero Man. He also had a hand in didn't he have a hand in Big Hero 6?
I don't know.
I know that's Claremont, but I don't know if Lee had any. I mean, he was in Big Hero 6, the movie.
Yeah.
And he plays.
He's also won awards you didn't even know about, like the Inkpot Award in 1974. 1994, he had the Will Eisner Hall of Fame. 1995, he was in the Jack Kirby Hall of Fame. 2002 was a Saturn Award for Life Career Award. 2008 was the National Medal of Arts. He was nominated.
He's the only comic book guy to be honored by the White House, actually.
Yeah, the National Medal of Arts. He shook hands with George W. Bush for that.
Yeah.
Jeez.
He was nominated for a Hugo Award, but did not win. But he did win a Scream Award for Comic-Con Icon Award. He's on the Hollywood Walk of Fame, Visual Effects Society Awards, Lifetime Achievement, Producers Guild of America, the Vanguard Award. And this one, I don't know what he won it for, but apparently National Academy of Video Game Trade Reviewers gave him an award for performance in a comedy supporting. I don't know what that one is, but he won it, apparently.
When did he win it?
2017, so that's definitely new.
Not Spider-Man. That game hadn't been out yet.
Yeah, it hadn't come out yet. That's because when I saw a video game, I'm like, oh, it's like a left out achievement for Spider-Man. But no. Maybe someone in our chat knows what that one was for.
Didn't he have a big thing where he welcomed like Kojima on stage and he was all in like military fatigues and everything for some game award show? I know those clips have been making the rounds. And
yeah, I don't know.
Maybe that's a part of it. He's done so much. He's done so much.
Yeah, dude, the guy's contributions to comics are I mean, they're bonkers. They're insane. And that's one of the things a lot of people tend to forget. Like back then in like the okay. So you have Stan Lee who becomes an assistant. All right, like he's working under Martin Goodman. And here's the craziest thing too. So at the time at Marvel, at Timely, in 1938, 1939, 1940, it was Joe Simon and Jack Kirby. They were like the 1-2 punch of Timely back then, like Captain America, and they were like a lot of the editing and stuff like that, and they would switch out. So like Joe Simon would draw and Jack Kirby would write, or Jack Kirby would write or Joe Simon would write and Jack Kirby would draw. But like they would switch things out all the time. Eventually, they leave. In like 1941, they take off. They're like, okay, like we're not doing anything with Timely anymore. So they jump ship. And I don't remember if they go over to DC or if they just go somewhere else.
Right.
But then like at 19 years old, Stan Lee is put in a position to be he's like an editor or something like that, but somebody with like some clout and authority. And so from that point running up until 1972, he's basically a guy that shows that he has a flair for business. He's a guy that shows that he knows what's going on. The guy knows how to create great comic books. So being an editor and then being a writer, going into the early 1960s when Jack Kirby comes back, and then they say, okay, like 1956 happens, Barry Allen comes out, and then Marvel, Martin Goodman's like, well, let's get back into comics again. It's like, well, what are we gonna do? And then it's like, Stan Lee, you're the man with a plan. Like, you're the guy that knows this thing. You've been writing all these horror and Western books and all that kind of stuff. So like, give me some ideas. And so Stan Lee's response is, well, DC has Justice League, so let's do Fantastic Four. Let's do a family, but they just argue and bicker all the time. And so we get Fantastic
like a real
Four.
family.
Yeah, like that explodes. And then you get Spider-Man, and then you get the return of Captain America, and you get Thor, you get Iron Man, you get the Avengers, you get like all these publications. Like it's literally, that's one of the things people tend to forget. It was basically like Steve Ditko, Jack Kirby, and Stan Lee.
Right.
Were like the three people who basically built the House of Marvel in the early 1960s. And so you look at all that, and then you look at the guy becoming editor-in-chief. You look at him like literally like systematically creating this powerhouse of the comic book industry that, while nobody thought it was possible, rivaled DC. I mean, that's huge. Like that's an insane achievement. And to have all those contributions, to have created all those characters, some of which succeeded, some of which failed, but to have all that work under your belt, it's astounding to me. Like it's I mean that's astounding to me to have that big of an impact on like a singular genre, right? I mean it'd be like if Stephen King pioneered the entire horror genre.
Right.
I mean it's insane to me, and it's incredible. But that's what I mean. You look at the life and times of Stan Lee, and you see all kinds of crazy things.
Yeah. He's been around forever. I mean, fun. A lot of people don't realize this, but his name is actually not even Stan Lee. It's Stanley Martin Lieber.
Yeah, Larry Lieber's his brother, I think.
Yeah.
No, it's kind of wild. Like, man, the life and times of Stan Lee. It's just.
It's interesting. It's rumored that just before he came up with like the Fantastic Four and all that, Joan is credited with telling him to follow his heart basically and make the characters he wanted to do because he was ready to leave the industry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Really?
Didn't want to do it anymore.
I didn't know that.
Well, he was sick of like being like, every time he would go to like, I remember I like the story where he's like, every time I would go to like cocktail parties and stuff, I'd tell people I'd like make up what I did. Like he'd be like, oh, I work on children's books. And they're like, oh, children's books. That's really sweet. And he's like, yeah, because otherwise like people were like, oh, comics, that's weird. Like, what will you actually do after this?
But he wasn't even writing his own things. It was more or less like, here, do this, publish that, create this, whatever. And so Joan was like, hey, if you're thinking about leaving, then this is your chance to just do what you want.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And from that, we got Fantastic Four as like the kickoff. Like, here you go. Here's a bunch of heroes who, aren't an archetype. They're not perfect.
Yeah.
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 And it really was a crapshoot. But
you made that point earlier about how like they're humans, they're people, they're flawed,
they're fallible. Like he looked at DC and he saw that they had their gods and their archetypes and like the ideal superhero, and he said, yeah, but what if they actually had problems and we could relate to them?
Yeah, there's this interview he did, and I cannot remember who it was with, but it's an interview that almost everybody's seen. But it's this really, really cool interview where he talks about that, and he talks about killing people, about killing characters. And he said it was something that he never really ever wanted to do that much. One, because back then, before like the Death of Superman, it was finite. So like you killed a character, like as far as the world was concerned, they were going to be gone forever.
Oh yeah, that
and so if he did that,
thing that was like the mandate at Marvel was dead means dead.
Oh yeah,
which is like a joke.
And the Superman died, and the Superman came back, and then dead means temporarily unavailable. Yeah. And so
that means slightly off the table, but maybe not, unless you're Wolverine.
Yeah, maybe not. Yeah, that is. Yeah, it's only a matter of time before he came back. But yeah, no, he would talk about that, and he would say like for him, creating comic book characters was not like it was never his intention to create comic book characters that were like DC, where they were more fantasy than anything else, or like where it was like, I mean, like aside from maybe like Eobard Thawne killing Iris, that for the most part like things always just sort of seemed to work out. Like it was never like that. It was like create people with actual struggles. Like I mean, Sal, you know this. That was basis behind Spider-Man. Like create a teenage kid with powers who's got problems.
Yeah, I mean,
and then just like see how people respond to it, and people loved it.
People also freaked out. Like when he created Spider-Man, he's like, he. If you look at it objectively, it's like, what if, you got Batman and Robin. What if Robin was the superhero?
Yeah.
Like, what if Robin quit or didn't become Robin and he actually got superpowers? Would anyone read about that? Because like, people who are in their early teens in comics were, for the most part, sidekicks. The idea of making the sidekick into the superhero and giving him his own story and exploring the like minutia of being a teenager, albeit, trumped up and being like and larger than life, that is so. It was so unprecedented at the time, and it's so like revolutionary that like there's always a reimagining. There's always a new opportunity. Like everybody who has every new media was like, except for the PS4 video game, is like, I want to tell it again. I want to do it again. Spider-Man is a teenager. Like the movies, the cartoon shows, the Ultimate line, Miles Morales, like everybody's like, well, what if I did it again though? What if we made him a teenager again? Because it was so evergreen and it's like such a resonating idea. I'm interested to know, what's everyone's favorite Stan Lee creation? Your favorite creation, not like the most
Iron
impact.
Man. Iron Man, hands down.
Spider-Man.
Because Iron Man was made on a bet. That was
Wait, what? I didn't know about that.
Iron Man was made on a bet. So the idea was like in the 1960s, you had the Cold War and you had like the Vietnam War. And so the question, well, the Cold War, with the Vietnam War being a proxy of the Cold War. But anyway, you had the Vietnam War. And so it was like American society at the time was very much like anti-capitalist, right? Like we don't want like titans of industry, or we want people that we can relate to who are, down to earth and part of the grassroots movement and stuff like that. And so the bet was, can Stan Lee create a character who's everything that young people, like against everything that young people stand for?
Yep.
A weapons maker, a capitalist.
Yeah. He's a capitalist and a weapons manufacturer. The two things that like no one should have agreed with at the time. Mm-hmm. And like he made it, and it was resoundingly successful. Yep. That's one of the reasons why I love Iron Man so much. Is he was made on a bet. Yeah, but it's one of the coolest. It's one of the coolest creations. Yeah.
Benny, you said Spider-Man?
Yeah, Spider-Man's my favorite superhero that Stan Lee ever made, and followed up shortly by the Hulk. I love the two of them. Big fans. I mean, I have the Hulk statue over there. I finally have like 3 Spider-Mans coming in. Yeah. Now I just want to order more though. Now like. My whole house will be Spider-Man. My house will honor you.
Yeah. Your house is already like a Venom house. You have like
it is a Venom. He didn't make Venom.
Yeah.
Yeah, but if he hadn't helped to create Spider-Man, there would be no Venom.
That's right.
True.
That's right, Sony.
It's all circular.
Venom was
I got 2 Spider-Mans coming in already. Like we've actually been retiring all the Star Wars stuff and some of the DC stuff because a lot of the Marvel stuff is finally coming out. A lot of people go, why do you only have DC statues? Because they took forever to make Marvel.
Yeah.
And so we have the entire Spider-Verse line, and I got the Avengers 4 Iron Man and Spider-Man coming in.
Nice.
Oh, so, God. Is that Sideshow?
Nice. Yeah. I'll show you these. You're going to love these. Like, if you want to... I wish I'd somehow had gotten these signed or whatever, but Spider-Man's always been my favorite creation he's ever made. I've always enjoyed Spider-Man.
All right. Tiffany, I'm going to go out on a limb here. I'm going to say Thor.
Oh, nailed it.
Oh,
Nailed
hold on.
it.
Well, yeah, you and Joel do your thing. Remind me to tell you what he said about why Thor throws his hammer to fly. He's in an interview stating that.
Nice.
Huh.
Well, Joel, go ahead.
I mean, got to give some love to the X-Men.
Yeah.
Yeah, we didn't even talk about the fact that, like, the whole X-Men.
Yep, all from this guy.
The originals.
Yeah.
And a genius concept, too, of being like, hey, I'm tired of thinking of reasons as to why they get bitten by spiders or pelted by gamma rays. What if they were just born with it?
Yeah.
And in doing so, I can tell a lot of really interesting social commentary in these stories. Wow, people who are
that
born
was the
different.
whole idea of the X. That's entirely why the X-Men were made, is because Stan Lee's like, but you can only have so many people bitten by a radioactive spider.
Right.
And so like what if we said they have powers, and they have powers because their genes just activated, and that's why, and they can have any power we want them to. Like there's no limit, because at the time, this is so cool. So Stan Lee does this interview. It's like Wizard Magazine or something like that. And he says at the time the biggest problem they faced at the outset was they already had gods. You already had Thor. All right, you already had Iron Man with his Iron Man suits. You already had Captain America, who was basically a guy on steroids. Like you had like all these different things. I mean, he was on the juice. He was on vitamin S.
Yeah, and by the way, kids, drugs are great, and they make you strong and fast.
and heal from anything.
But you already had these heroes who were grounded in like, okay, experiments, basically, like science experiments. And by the 60s, the whole like science fiction has to be a part of comic books was like going away.
Yeah.
Right? So it was like, okay, well, yeah, then just like make X-Men where they have genes that activate. Now here's the funny thing. Originally, Stan Lee wanted to call them the mutants.
Yep.
And publisher Martin Goodman was like, absolutely not, because no one's going to know what that means.
Right.
If you call them the mutants, they're going to think like they're all mutated, you know, and crazy looking. Like basically everybody from like the craziest scenario you could think of. And so he was like, call them something else. And so we ultimately settled on the X-Men, which originally, but here's the crazy thing. Originally, the X-Men stood for extraordinary. Like the X is for extraordinary. And people just say it just means the Xavier Men.
Yeah.
But
and
yeah,
they
no,
all
that
had
was a
an
whole
extra power.
extra power, yeah. Yeah, it was interesting. No, like that's one of the funny things. X-Men was actually one of the instances of a character that, or a group of characters that Stan Lee and Jack Kirby made that didn't pan out the way they had hoped.
Yeah.
But, you know, and we lost Benny's camera. There we go. Okay.
Hey, Skype crashed.
Oh.
And I clicked over to send you the link to the Spider-Man statue, and then I clicked back, and Skype's like, and we're done. And I was like, what?
Sounds like something Skype was good.
But yeah, no, that was the idea. That was the whole idea of the X-Men. It was kind of crazy. But
Yeah.
the entirety of the X-Men. I mean, honestly, that's one of those kind of things where Stan Lee made them. I usually give credit for the X-Men to Chris Claremont. And I usually say, like, he was the X-Men's Stan Lee, more or less. But
yeah.
Well, I mean,
So-
but without him having come, what would Claremont have written?
Yeah.
that's 100%
Right,
true.
yeah, using that
Yeah,
same
that's-
argument with Venom.
that's true.
Because Stan Lee started everything. Everything kind of comes
Yeah.
out of his original
Yeah.
creations. So there's an interview story out there where he gives his opinions on Superman and Thor. Okay? And someone asked, why does Thor spin the hammer to fly?
Mm-hmm.
And Stan Lee said because when he would look at Superman, Superman makes no sense to Stan Lee.
Yep.
He just stands there and he goes. There's no propulsion. There's no momentum.
Yep.
He just stands and goes. It makes no sense. How does it work? How do the physics work with that? And he goes, so what with Thor, we wanted him to stand there and go. So he spins the hammer and he throws it.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah,
That's interesting.
his hammer's really the superhero. Like the
Yeah.
hammer's one that flies.
yeah. The Hammer's the real superhero.
I
mean, it really is when you think about it.
I think one of my favorite things about Stan Lee, even outside of the amazing things that he wrote and created, is just how much of an ambassador he was for comic books as an art form. And the years he spent not writing new stuff, he spent touring colleges and conventions and talking to people and really advocating for this art form of why it was important and why it was good and why, you know, it wouldn't rot your brain. It would actually help you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's been my argument for the longest time about comic books, because everyone who knows me a lot better knows that I'm a huge fan of art. For those guys who don't know, I was an art student originally, before the military, before everything. When I came out of high school, I was an art student. I was going to Rhode Island School of Design, and I've always been a huge appreciator of the arts. I've always enjoyed art, and that's what I love about comics. Art is a big thing for me. Because of that, I've always kind of been in the same boat with, like, I've seen his arguments, and I've always, like, used him as reinforcements. Like, no. Like, one of the biggest names in comics states that this is an art form. This is not just stuff for kids. This is not just stuff for kids to go and enjoy a story about Spider-Man. This is artwork. We're creating artwork, and they're making amazing artwork. You just need to look past it's a guy in spandex. You have to look at the broader scope, the bigger picture as to what's happening in this. They're telling stories, amazing stories, and they're doing it with amazing art. And that's what it is.
It's American mythology.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it also translates to, like, international mythology. Like, it's mythology, but that belongs to the world. Mythology, it's human mythology. Tiffany, you didn't get to say your favorite your favorite creation by Stan Lee.
I think. Well, all right.
I mean, we all know what it is, but let's hear it.
I know, and I did talk about it before. And while it was, and I said this before too, like it's Ditko who came up with the original pitch for Doctor Strange, but it was Stan Lee who said, "Let's do it." Like,
Yeah.
let's 100%, let's go for it. Why not? Why can't we have a magic guy? Why can't we have, like, this, like, crazy psychedelic magic user? And to be fair, it's Stan who came up with the spells. Like, he made them up. He made up the horror host of Hoggoth. He's like, I don't know what it means, but it sounds cool. I don't care.
Yeah.
And he's right. It does sound cool.
Yeah.
Like, so, like, I gotta like say thank you to him, because, like, Ditko could have been pushed aside by any other publisher, but, like, we're not doing magic stuff. We're
That's
doing
the thing.
superheroes. And like
Yeah.
Lee was like, yeah, but why not? Let's give it a shot. 5 pages, let's do it.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, and I will say this. All right, Tiffany, one of my favorite moments from your all show. All right, and I can't remember if it was. I think it was Off the Rack because it wouldn't have been a Back Issues episode. I think it was Off the Rack. It was when they killed Doctor Strange in Secret Wars.
Oh yeah, that was our Secret Wars TLDR recap.
Yeah, and then like here's Tiffany sitting on the couch
Yep,
With a
in funeral
black
garb.
veil.
that's right. That's right.
Yeah, it was pretty entertaining.
Thank you so much. That was so sad. He was so cool in that.
That was the original Doctor Strange.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not
Yes.
not reborn by a Richards family member.
Nope.
No.
OG.
Yeah.
OG Doctor Strange, overpowered
Yeah.
Doctor Strange.
And Sal, how about you?
I think it's obvious that Spider-Man.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and I've
we
talked
agree
at
on that
length
one,
about
Sal.
it. But yeah, Spider-Man is like the character that, like, when I was a kid, the superhero that was handed to me was Batman, because I was a little boy. Little boys are told, you like dinosaurs, sharks, cars, and Batman. And I did, like, why not? Batman. But, like, Spider-Man was the first superhero that I said, like, that's speaking my language. It looked cool, which is the immediate thing. It's like, I'm sorry, everybody, like, when you're creating superheroes, it's got to look cool. That's the first thing everyone notices and cares about. Spider-Man looks cool. Immediately the first thing. Then I got into the character and I understood who he was, and I completely resonated with who I want to be and what I wanted to read about, and it informed my entire existence. So without Stan and Steve and even Ramita, Kirby, who drew Amazing Fantasy 15's cover, I'm not me, and so yeah, Spider-Man.
Yeah. Yeah, man, that's a good choice, dude. Spider-Man that guy's iconic.
Right?
Yep.
I mean, it's an iconic character. Like he will stand the test. Like he'll for people forever know who Spider-Man is.
Yeah.
And see, that's got to be one of the coolest things. Like if you're Stan Lee, and you're in the final moments of your life, and you're looking back on the things you've done, then you can say like, I have created characters, either adopting existing fictional work or creating work totally, alongside like creating unique work alongside like Steve Ditko and Jack Kirby and those guys that people will remember forever.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's an astounding thing.
It's
man-
achieving immortality.
The man walked
Yeah,
with a
exactly what
swagger.
it is.
He knew that 20 years, 30 years, 40 years ago.
Yeah.
The way that he presented himself, the way that he carried his art form and his craft and his industry, you knew that dude knew that he's like, I'm already an icon, I'm already a god. Like at this point, what else is there? So but that's what's funny is that he still managed to infuse his self with the same self-effacing humor and carnival barkerism to be hey, I know, he could literally been I did all the hard work in all the way up to 1972. I'm done. And kick his feet up and just collect checks for the rest of his life. This dude was going to cons less than a year ago. This dude was being flown to movies and movie sets and recording voiceovers and doing facial recognition captures for video games. He was working. He never stopped working.
It's true.
Yeah.
You mentioned the convention thing there. I wonder if now people can finally crunch the numbers on this one for certain. Did he have more con appearances than anyone else? Because I feel he has.
Based on
up.
just
Let's
his
look that up.
longevity, just like the fact that he was around before Comic-Cons were invented.
Yeah.
I feel like
he was
got
at the first San Diego Comic-Con.
Yeah. I didn't realize Benny left. I would have thrown up a picture or something.
That's all right. He'll be back.
Comic-Con appearances.
Okay, while you're doing that, I was just, my brain was wandering,
Yeah.
and I was looking up, just because, because someone posted it in the chat, a nice link to an image of Doctor Strange opening a portal up for Stan Lee and his wife being on the other side, and I was like, that's so sweet. And I was just reading about how they met, and it's so adorable. It is
a good story.
It is beautiful, and if you have the chance, you should check it out because it's such a lovely story.
Yeah.
What's the story?
I believe he was actually there to he ran into her. He was there to meet another young lady.
Someone else. But
Someone else.
But his wife answered the door.
Yeah. And he had this moment where he looked at her and he's like, this is the girl I've been drawing all of my life. And then like she opened her mouth and she had an English accent, and he was a sucker for English or any type of accent really. And like he's like, I feel like I said something ridiculous, like I love you, but I don't really remember. And then he took her to lunch, and from that point on, he was just like, he's like, I might have proposed to her at lunch, I don't know, but like the plan was he was going to marry her, but like she was married, and so she moved to Reno so that she could get a divorce. And so she, I guess during the time while she was still married, wrote him a letter, addressed it to Jack as like a way to throw off like any issues. And Stan was like, who's Jack? I don't know who Jack is. I better go to Reno. So he goes to Reno, and there's like there's like these 3 guys with her, and they're like huge, like giant rugged men. And like he's just like, I don't have a chance in hell here. What are you kidding me? And like he did, and so she was granted her divorce, and an hour later they got married.
Wow.
See, that's like the best thing, man. Like the girl of your dreams comes out of nowhere. Like that's got to be the best.
Right.
That's like the best feeling ever. Yeah.
Right. Just like there she was. He's like, I never did meet that girl. Like the other one.
No.
It just didn't matter.
Yeah. It's very familiar if you think about like the protagonist opening the door and seeing the girl in his dreams and saying something that like knocks him off his feet.
Face it, Stan.
I mean, we do know that like I think Gwen Stacy was the visual basis. Like Joan was the visual basis for Gwen Stacy. Like top to bottom,
really?
She looks like her.
Yeah, I mean, I think she had darker hair back then, but like yeah, like her attitude, everything about her, I think like he's just like, this is her.
Right.
Like,
I think he said to me to like draw her. So, yeah. But in any case, like the dude lived and loved like we only dream about.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
There's actually a great Stan Lee documentary that came out only a couple of years ago that covers that. We actually get to go into Lee's home, meet his daughter, and meet his wife, and it's really well done. I wish I could remember what it was called.
I'm sure it's available, or at least it will be. Just Google it. Stan Lee.
Wait, what?
Just Google it.
I'm gonna.
Joel.
Just Google it.
I'm going to. I didn't want to have a break in the show while I did. With Great Power, the Stan Lee story.
Oh, there you go.
From 2010.
Okay.
Do we know? Are they still going to make that like movie, that like fiction movie about him, where he's like a super spy?
Wait, there's a fiction movie about Stan Lee?
Yeah, there was going to be like a like weird like kind of like drama action movie about Stan Lee, where it's like mostly fictional.
Well, I would assume mostly, unless he was actually a secret spy.
Which he could have been.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, apparently Fox wanted to do it back, like, I want to say, a couple of years ago, about, like, kind of like an action movie, about him just, like, being like a super secret spy and, like, kicking ass. And it's like, oh, no, like, my comic book stuff is, like, subterfuge. I'm actually, like, a secret agent or something.
Oh.
But
wow.
I don't think that's going to happen, especially if Fox was the ones who were going to make it.
Yeah.
By the way, if you haven't seen it, Disney made a really nice tribute video that came out today.
Yeah,
I saw that. It was
on their website. I haven't seen it yet, but
it's nice. It's short.
But yeah,
it's not as comprehensive as I would have liked it to be, but you know what? It's pretty okay.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, that's the other thing too. Is I mean, I think you'll see more comprehensive videos coming out later. I mean, you know, while people realize that Stan Lee was approaching, you know, the point when he would pass on, it still did kind of suddenly happen.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's not like Stan Lee was hospitalized.
No, yeah.
And then, like, because he was hospitalized like a while ago with pneumonia.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like, it'd have been different if that had happened and then he had passed on. But, you know, it was like, and then suddenly Stan Lee's passed on. It's like, wow. You know, it's like, okay. I mean.
Yeah. No, I had, like, I think I was on the phone with a friend, and then, like, I got off the phone, I looked at, I was like, well, I got to instinctively check Reddit, and the top post was that, and I'm like, no.
Yeah. Yeah, it was pretty bonkers.
I thought it was a hoax. I thought it was another celebrity death hoax.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You have that moment where, like, you reread it because you're like, is it like a joke where they're just like, is Stan Lee dead? You know what I mean? Like, or like, you know, like, how could he still be alive? And then you're like, oh, yeah, no.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No.
I don't think I wanted to believe, and that's the other thing. Again, he was pushing 100 years old. I think we all knew it had to happen eventually, but we weren't ready. We just all weren't ready.
That's the only thing I can say positively about this. Like out of the only thing I can say that when he lost Joan, we all said he was going to be going with her soon. He is 95. He lived a full life. The only thing that I can positively say about this is that he did get to be 95. This isn't his life was cut short or any of that kind of a situation. So at least it was a full life, and he did lead an amazing life. Right. And that's why this is more of a celebration of his life as opposed to like, well, oh man, if only he had done this, if only he had done that.
Right.
As fans of Stan Lee, as fans of Marvel, as fans of everything he's done, you kind of saw it coming to an extent. He was everybody's great-great-grandfather, and you know how that's got to go eventually.
Yeah. The guy had to have passed on with no regrets.
Yeah.
So.
All right.
Yeah.
Most definitely.
Well, yeah. I mean, like I will say though, I bet because he's a creative, he's a writer, and like he was gonna he could have told stories forever if time had allowed him to.
Yeah.
And I bet there were a few stories he wished he had told.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, and like that, like don't take it as sad. Take it as like that's just someone who just loved it. He just loved it so much.
Yeah.
Yep.
And we all felt like we knew him, which I think is pretty special. And the fact that so many people from so many different industries and so many different media makers all came out, and everyone has a picture with Stan. And I think there's something so truly wonderful about that he was a part of everyone's family because everyone has one picture with him.
Right.
Yeah.
That is true. I mean, that was probably one of the most incredible things. I don't think I'd ever really grasped how much of an impact Stan Lee had on the world until he passed. And then you saw pictures from like everyone. Yeah. Like it was like people on like they were trending, you know, like was it hashtag or it was Stan Lee's actual name was trending. Yeah. You know, and it was like rest in peace Stan Lee. And you saw like all these pictures everywhere from like The Rock posted a picture.
Yeah.
Shook hands with Stan Lee. And I didn't even know he ever met him. But like you
Rob Zombie, LeBron James were two of the weirdest ones I saw. They loved him too.
You see like all these people who had encountered Stan Lee over the course of their life, and it's just like rest in peace Stan Lee, and it's nothing but like good words and well wishes, and it's like, God, man, like there are like dignitaries and like there are like high end celebrities, and there's world leaders who have never reached, like, who have never met this many people, right, or never had an impact on this many people in like their whole lives. True. You know, and it's just like God, man. I mean, it's kind of insane. I mean, for a guy who created Marvel Comics, Jesus,
yeah,
guy had one hell of an impact on the world. I mean,
it's true.
And a positive impact too. I think.
Yeah, positive impact.
Oh yeah, 100% positive impact.
Yeah,
have you guys ever seen the show Who Wants to Be a Superhero?
Yes,
yes, I have.
Was great.
Might be one of the worst shows ever, but like,
he's amazing.
He's the host. It's incredible.
Who wants to be a superhero? All right, I need to
never looked that up.
You do.
No, I didn't even know it existed.
Oh, it was a sci-fi show. Okay, Rob, let me give you the pitch. It's a reality show in which everyone creates their own superhero, makes the cosplay, and then Stan Lee runs them through various trials to see who can become a superhero.
And so
that sounds like the greatest thing ever.
It is.
I need to
so
see
picture like the Big Brother house, but everyone's pretending to be a superhero.
Yeah.
Oh my God. See, okay. Let me tell you something. If they bring that back, like I'm competing to be in that.
Right. No,
like, I want to be in that.
If we lived in that world, like if we were doing this back then, we definitely all would have auditioned to be on this terrible show.
Oh yeah. Oh
God. Yeah.
There's 2 seasons.
Okay, they need to bring that back. Who wants to be a superhero?
Oh my God. So Stan hosted the show. He's great. He plays like he never physically appears on the show until the last episode of each season. The rest of the time, he records all of his interactions. He has he keeps a respectable distance between himself and the insane people competing on this show.
And they really were insane.
He's like, oh no, I don't want to touch these people. I don't want them anywhere near me. Like he's always on a TV screen. He shows up, like they're all like talking. They're all doing their inane reality like TV show dialogue, and then he'll appear on the screen and go like, okay, and like they all have these horrible names. Like I remember Fat Mama was one.
Yeah, yes.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Basura was one.
And Luminaria.
Major Victory.
Major Victory. Who won? Wasn't it Major Victory?
Don't ruin it. Don't ruin it for Rob. I'm
gonna go upstairs. Like after this, like I'm gonna buy it on Apple TV, and over the course of like the next like however many weeks, I'm gonna watch it. Like I'm gonna save that for a couple weeks.
It's like 7 episodes a season. It's not bad at all.
But the grand prize was you got to be your superhero appeared in a comic book made by Dark Horse.
Yeah.
and put out for Free Comic Book Day. The first season, you also won a cameo in a Sci-Fi Pictures original movie.
Oh my God!
So
okay, they need to bring that back and have Kevin Smith be the one who runs it.
that's a great idea. Holy
do it.
crap!
Yeah, he would do it, dude. Okay, if they bring that back, like we have to compete to be on that.
Yes.
Because I will.
Right.
Like, I'll get on my channel and be like, hey guys, so no videos for the next 6 months. I'm gonna be on like this reality show.
Now, keep in mind, they did kick one guy out very early on because he was a toy maker and he was in the toy industry and he let it slip. That's like, oh yeah, I want to make action figures off this, and Stan's like, no, that's the dark side is what that is.
No profiteering off your experience here.
Only we can do that. Get out.
Aw, man, that show.
Yeah.
It was something special.
Yeah, I need to check this out. That show sounds amazing.
But Stan is great in it. He is a perfect showman. If you've never seen him interact with anyone like physically, you've never seen a video of him, he's hilarious in that show. If you know and love Stan, watching that show is even more funny because he's playing this like authoritative, like you know, like this is a very serious competition with a bunch of idiots in ridiculous costumes, and like it's so great. But it's not Stan's best foot forward, but it's so funny and so great, and he maintains his dignity throughout the whole show. So watch the hell out of it. You know, but anyway, I mentioned that because I'm like, oh crap, I forgot. He's also on Who Wants to Be a Superhero.
Yep.
Yeah, I need to check that out.
He was everywhere.
Yeah. God.
I think that's kind of a good. I mean, if you guys want to keep talking, we can. It's technically 15 minutes before our end time, but I feel it's kind of a good place to leave it, unless you guys want to.
I don't think we can top Who Wants to Be a Superhero.
Yeah, that's
I think that kind of.
Sorry.
I am gonna link in the chat this really lovely article I was reading earlier today. It's just, and I'm sure you saw it by Wired. Just 12 things you learn over 2 decades of lunches with Stan Lee. And it's written by a gentleman who was writing for Wizard magazine and had lunch with Stan Lee a whole lot. And it's just some really just fun insights to him, just like more about like the man himself, like that Stan didn't like waiting for tables, and like it's not like he thought that he should be seated and like throw his weight around. He would just not go to that restaurant. He would just go to a different restaurant then. It's like he'd just be like, okay, we're not gonna go there. We're gonna go over here. And he had very specific orders that he ordered, and like it was almost the same thing every time. And it's just a nice little article, and like in it he mentions that like he. You know, people all like would say that like he should retire, and that he was like, I'm not going to retire because like people retire to do the things they like to do, and I'm already doing what I like to do. And if I retire, that means giving that up. And I was like, it's such a nice article. So I'm going to link that if you want to check it out. It's nice.
Yeah, that sounds pretty cool. You know what that restaurant thing reminds me of? It reminds me of the time we went to Blue Sea Sushi in Seattle, and we didn't get to sit at the conveyor belt because they were all packed.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And we had to sit at like the table off to the side, and I was like, "This is so disappointing," because like I want to sit at the conveyor belt. They're like, "Well, you can order off the regular menu." I was like, "I didn't come here for the regular menu. I came here for the conveyor belt."
Rob was so angry with that.
Really
like, Rob,
I know
you haven't eaten in like 8 hours. You just got to calm down a minute, and we'll get food.
Yeah, I was getting pretty grumpy. I mean, yeah, okay. For the guys who don't know, like those guys out there in Twitch land, a final thought here: whenever I go to conventions, all that walking around works up an appetite. And I will be like, I need to go eat something.
Right.
And if I don't go eat something, then I will get very grumpy.
And you don't want to see them.
Yeah. It's not like lack of vape grumpy, but it's just like still pretty. It's still pretty grumpy. Yeah, it's still pretty.
I believe it's called hangry. I do believe is what that's called.
Do not separate Rob from his food or his vape. Those are the 2 things that you will regret very quickly.
I like food, man. I'm a big fan of food.
Oh, I do too.
I look like a man who doesn't enjoy food.
I'm a self-professed foodie. But all right, guys, thank you for joining us today for this a special episode of the Weekly Poll. It was kind of normalish, but it was kind of special.
Yeah.
I hope you guys enjoyed it. And, normally I would end this mentioning, Patreon. I'd end this mentioning Twitch, subs and all. But, I don't think we should do that today. I think today in general, we'll just leave it as is. We'll all remember Stan Lee for the incredible accomplishments of his life. And let's all give everyone one final excelsior. Okay?
All right.
On 3. 3, 2, 1. Excelsior! All right, guys. Thank you so much for joining us today for the Weekly Poll. If you want to watch the next episode, it'll air in about 2 weeks. we'll be here as usual. And if you're here for the usual podcast and stuff we bring to you on Eligible Monster, the channel, we will not be around until Sunday, but on Sunday we'll have our comic book review show back. Thank you guys so much, and enjoy. I guess you can just it's weird to end it and not have like 1,000 plugs.
Yeah. But yeah, we'll catch you guys next time.
Yeah. Alan Scott.